Paths are one of the most powerful features you can leverage when building AI workflows. With paths, you can dynamically run different sets of actions based on conditions you set. This feature can be used to run different actions based on the sentiment from a customer support ticket, or route different questions to different Cassidy assistants based on the contents of the question. So, I'm going to walk you through a tutorial of how to use paths in a workflow. For the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to rebuild an entire workflow that uses paths to direct product questions to the appropriate assistant. The way this works is the workflow takes a product question as the input. Then, it categorizes the product question based on which product the question is asking about. Using the paths feature, it routes each question to the correct Cassidy assistant. For this example, we have a company who has 4 different products. For each product, we've created a customized product knowledge assistant that specializes in information on that specific product. So here I am with a blank slate workflow. We're going to start from scratch here with a manual trigger. The first thing we're going to do is configure our input for this workflow, which is the text input that contains the product question. Next, we are going to use the categorize text action to categorize the product question based on which product the question is asking about. Here you can see that I'm categorizing the product question into 4 different categories, each one corresponding to one of the products that this company has. Next, we're going to add a paths action. The default paths action comes with 2 different paths. We have 4 different products, so we want to create 4 different branches. To create a new branch, click on the plus button. Next, I'm going to rename each of these branches, one for each product. To rename a path, just populate the path name field. Note that renaming the paths is completely optional, but if you have a lot of different paths, it's best to rename them for organizational purposes. Now that we've renamed all of our paths, we can start configuring the conditions that will dictate if this path runs or not. So, for the Client Connect path, we are going to add a condition by clicking on the button here. Then, we are going to check the output of the categorized text action, and if it equals Client Connect, then this path will run. I'm going to go through the rest of the paths and add a condition that checks for the appropriate category from the categorized text action. The default configuration for the last path is that it will run if no other paths are run. This is the last path, so if no other paths will run, this is a catch-all path. For this example, we only want the path to run if the categorized text action categorizes this question as a legal sprinter product. So we're going to turn this toggle off. Then we're going to add a condition like the other paths. Now that we've configured the conditions for each path, we can go ahead and add actions to run if that path is executed. To add an action, click on this plus button within the path. For our example, we're going to be directing each question to the correct Cassidy assistant. So I'm going to go ahead and add a generate text with Cassidy assistant action. From there, I'm going to choose the assistant for the product that this path is configured for. I'm also going to go ahead and configure the prompt. I'm going to go ahead and add the generate text with Cassidy assistant action to each path, making sure that the selected assistant matches the path's conditions. After we're done configuring the actions for each path, we should be able to run this workflow with the input as a product question and observe that the product question gets routed to the correct product knowledge assistant. After running the workflow, we can observe the path's output and see that it correctly answered the question. By clicking on path steps, you can see that the legal sprinter path ran and was able to route this question to the correct Cassidy assistant. In this example, we went over how to create a workflow that uses the paths feature to route a product question to the specialized product knowledge Cassidy assistant. Paths can be used for any kind of conditional logic you want to use within Cassidy, so the possibilities are endless.